Hello everyone and welcome to yet another live coding and chill. I'm your host Johnny. I hope you've had amazing weeks and that you're gonna have even more amazing Fridays and weekends. I'm having a great time here. Barcelona is getting warmer, as I said in the last live stream. In which live stream we kept working on Goblin, the helper app for DMs, D&D nerds like myself, sci-fi nerds, tabletop gaming, pen and paper gaming nerds, and more. And what we did was add search and filtering. And today we're gonna add pagination because that was asked for in the previous live stream, and I always love exploring and showing things that people will find useful. And the greatest validation that someone will find it useful is when someone in the chat or a comment or the Discord server says, how do you go about solving this? How do you do pagination? So today we're gonna do pagination because we don't have hundreds of rows here, but we do have a lot. We're getting up there. So it may be nice to have the 1, 2, 3 next page, previous page type of thing in the end. Maybe not necessarily for the user, but definitely for your pockets. We're gonna talk about that. Hello, Sam. Hello, Sam in the chat. Glad there is long form of this. Just like reshaping consciousness. So thank you very much. Thank you for appreciating the channel. I appreciate you and your constant support in the chat and your engagement. So what we have been doing is that we started from nothing, and I'll switch to the desktop view for this. That's probably a good idea. We started from nothing. We went to the terminal and the SvelteKit wizard, and eventually we created this portfolio site or a marketing site, a starter project that you can start talking to people and selling and saying, would you like a marketing site? Would you like a portfolio site? And set your price. If you can't find any of those people, do one for your friends. Do it as a gift to someone. And that, once you have a real client, you can actually put it on your CV and you will learn more because you won't be just inside your head. You won't just be creating like demo projects. You will be doing something real and someone else will ask you at some point, I wanted to do this, and you'll have to figure out how to do it. And then we took this project and extended it to work with real data, to talk to a database. We're using Turso, an SQLite database, with Drizzle, an ORM that works with SQLite as well as Postgres. So if we want to pivot at some point, we may. And in this one, we are talking to an API to do the sign-up form. Here, in case we want to inform people that there is more functionality added. Lots of startups and lots of ideas start with a fake doors marketing page like this that just says, we're going to build this tool, declare your interest, and then these people that have these sites, the fake doors mailing lists, they go to other people, they raise money, they say there's 1,000 people that are trying to get in here, so let's get to work. Anyway, we're talking to a third-party API to store these email addresses, and we're talking to a database to show these loots, which we can filter and search because that's what we did on the previous stream. And now we're going to paginate. Cool. Some changes from the last live stream. I did change this input to be of type search instead of type text input because that gives us some styling by default. So you can see I get the X for free. Users can escape and then it clears the search, which is quite nice, I would say. That's the big thing that changed that I should have mentioned last time. This is a form inside a search element, and this input is of type search. Anyway, today it's all gonna be about pagination. And we're gonna be re-establishing the learnings we did in the previous live stream because we are not doing client-side state for this because that's like 2020 style way to do it. The best way to do it was before 2020, and especially now with server-side filtering and server-side pagination. So we're using query parameters to actually specify that the user is searching for this, and they've selected like the fantasy setting and whatnot. And what we are going to do today, similarly, is we're going to say, all right, the user wants the first page, or the second page, or the third page, and so on and so forth. So we'll do it like that, which is better for a few reasons. One of them being that the full client-side way would either require a front-end to back-end request to fetch the rest of the data, which is fine. SvelteKit does this like behind the scenes for you, but it would need that request even on the first request where you're doing the server-side rendering. So that's not ideal. Another way to do this would be to fetch all the data in the world and getting the user to download the data just for you to fill the reserved space. That would be a bit pointless. And the best reason to not do this is that it's just simpler, like less code. It leads to less code, and it leads to code that less code that you have is framework agnostic. So we're using SvelteKit here, but you can use the same approach when you do Next.js, when you use Astro, when you use 11t, like you can use Laravel, you can use any framework that you want. It doesn't have to be JavaScript or TypeScript. The backend logic will be very similar. Frontend logic will be exactly the same because it's the server that is going to be saying, all right, we're searching for this. We need the third page. Here you go, frontend. No need to do anything else. No need to worry about stores, subscribe then, state, use state, like the hooks, that sort of thing. No need to worry about any of that. And simpler code is usually easier to understand and easier to test. I have heard the saying that you should be twice as smart as the person who wrote the implementation to test it. So you should make sure to try to not do the cleverest thing you can when you write implementations, because then you'd never be able to test it. Anyway, we've also spent a lot of time doing meaningful tests for this with Playwright. Maybe today we'll show how to do them in VTest. We've talked about how Playwright browser tests usually give you maximum confidence that the thing actually works, because that's how the user would be interacting with your website. They'd click around in the browser and you'd expect some things to happen. If you have them captured in a spec in Playwright, you have maximum confidence that this will actually work when a real person comes along, especially if you're testing across multiple browsers, which we have set up. But they take longer to run than node tests or bun. Backend tests, how would I call them? Anyway, tests that we will be running with VTest, those will be super fast. So if you want to test edge cases at least, maybe it makes sense to have a smoke test, sanity test, basic functionality test in Playwright, and then have all the edge cases covered with VTest. A great discussion to have in the future. So, Pagination today, let me know if this is interesting to you or what you'd like to see next. Very likely we will be needing Pagination soon, because I won't be the only one coming up with all these loot items. I think the next thing we're going to do is user accounts and then being able to submit your own loot items. So a user who is signed up is able to submit some items here, and then maybe be able to like favorite, upvote, star, that sort of functionality, have the ability to see the most popular loot drops here. I think that'd be cool, and it would seg into the next level of complexity for when you create a real app, which is user accounts and user content. But even with this, you have your client is able to add the loot like we've shown, maybe with just a seed file. Not ideal, but it kind of works. You can definitely get a long way with this, but adding user accounts definitely takes you to yet another level. And every time you get to another level, you can get to ask for more money, get to ask for more complicated projects like bigger authority. It's more satisfying. Sometimes, usually it's more satisfying, I'd say. All right, is preamble over? Maybe yes. In which case, let's use search params to paginate the results. So what we've done last time is hard code the parameters that we want to use on the front end, on the URL. So if the user was to say page 1, or maybe page 2, according to how big a page is, we shouldn't be getting like a million items here. Let's say 10 per page. 10 seems sensible. Maybe even 5. And we won't be doing different amount of items for mobile or desktop. Maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll do it in the future. But it's a bit like preemptively doing a preemptive performance optimization that you probably don't need. Just fetch 10. It's fine. It's like more than double what a mobile user would see, at least if they have this sort of resolution. That's how you'd go about how many should I see. Like 8 feels correct. If you're on desktop, then you kind of see like 8 in a screen. So yeah, 10, nice round number as well. So let's go for that. So if they say page 2, you'd want them to see only 10 items, because we've decided that's the page size, and start from item number 11, like amulet of the planeswalker. We'll see if that remains to be the case. Right, so the name of this parameter can't be anything, doesn't have to be page. I'll put page for now, because I see that page 1 is the first page of results, page 2 is the second page of results. Makes sense. Other people do it. You do like P1 and P means page in this case. What does Google do? Like we usually ask this, because Google knows something about the search. So what do you use as a page search param? Doesn't really matter, we just want to go to the end. Oh, they're doing infinite loading, which we will be talking about, which is quite interesting. So we've gone to a few places. IP equals 1. What does IP equals 2 mean? And maybe they're doing cursors here, not sure. So the original query is this, OQ for original query, because maybe they've spell checked it. Who knows? Maybe not. And this one, IP2. Oh, it's a has parameter. It doesn't count. It doesn't do anything server side. So that's interesting. More results. Press this. Yeah, they're doing like a weird infinite loading thing. Interesting. I was planning to talk about this later. Anyway, the point is, Google is doing infinite loading. Maybe we will do it as well. My point was, what should we use as page parameter? We'll just use page. That's about it. So, how do we use this? You may remember that in our source routes loot, this page is loot, we have a page.server. This does the backend stuff, fetches our data, and so on, and also has access to what the URL is and what the search parameters in that URL are. Therefore, we can add yet another one. We can extract a page parameter, and then use that one, possibly pass it along to our loot repo. So now we'll need to augment this interface. Besides loot filters, maybe we'll just call it loot filters, would say that there is a page, which is an indicator, it's a number, like number 1. JavaScript, there is no distinction between integer and float, it's just number. So let's say they take this, that always exists, and we can pass it along here, but this may be undefined, this may be a string, so maybe we can quickly check. Let's call it sets params page. Get it out of there like this, and then say that the page, if sets param space exists, parse the integer there. It says to do it in base 10, which you don't really need, or else default to 1. And this may cause problems if users are malicious, but we'll get into that later. So now, besides the interface, we have a few implementations of that interface. dbloot repo implements this. So this one gets given a page now, and we can do stuff with it. So Drizzle actually does have some good documentation on how to paginate, including the most classic way to paginate, which is with a limit and an offset. the limit is how many items there are per page, like 10 per page is what we're going to do. And the offset is I want to start from like the first page, the second page, the third page, but each page means times page size items. So the second page you need to offset by 10, third page you need to offset by 20. I think that's the most standard language for this, but Supabase, for example, likes a slightly different language just to keep you on your toes. So I think they call it, the limit is take, like take 10, limit 10, and the offset they call it skip. Just, sometimes in especially in JavaScript, we want to keep people on their toes, so we use different keywords instead of the things that everyone else uses. There is another way to paginate, which we'll get to later, but today we're going to do limit offset pagination, and indeed all we need is to chain a limit parameter here for the amount of items we want per page, and an offset parameter of how many items do you want to skip. And I think they have like the maths for us here as well, so we can copy that. And we could even have a search parameter for the page size, like, or per page, like something like that. We could allow the user to define how many items we should get per page, but we won't do that for now. If we find a case where we may want the user to allow this, like they have a drop down and they see more items, we may allow this. Or if we had an API where you can programmatically hit and see loot items, then we have less of a worry of, well, how many realistically fit on your screen, and when does it become back UX? Maybe for a backend code, you just want 100 items per page. So then maybe we'll refactor this, but for now, let's just say that the page size is 10. Why are we doing this? I guess I should say that besides the UX, at some point, maybe the scroll bar becomes too long. Maybe at some point you want to see the footer of the page. It's a matter of cost. Like if you have millions of items, you don't want to fetch millions of rows and pass them over the wire. It's going to be a slower experience for your users. Maybe they'll need to pay for those megabytes you're eating unnecessarily, but you'll definitely be paying to do the call to Turso to get all those rows every time, when realistically they are only going to see like 10 or 20 of them and you're fetching a million. But the UX can get even worse, because depending on how you render these in the browser, even if they are on screen, maybe they will be rendered and therefore make all the scrolling be unusable. Maybe it will make the browser chug, for example. There are things you can do, like usually they call them visualization and that sort of thing, but we won't get into it. We'll just try to render a sensible amount of items. So we said that we want to add a limit here, and the limit will be the page size, and then the auto-completion here does suggest something that may be true. GitHub Copilot doesn't know Drizzle that well because it's been trending recently, so it often leads me down the bad path. So let's see what they are suggesting here. Page minus 1 times page. Makes sense, like you start by 0. You want an offset when you take the first page, so you actually make something to ensure that this is 0 when you are in the first page. Your offset should be 0 when you're in the first page. I guess that's one way to think about this. So the moment we save this, we should be seeing only 10 items here. Let's see. And we are, and we did start from the amulet of the placeholder because we also had the page. So let's play around here. First page, Eldritch Staff, all the way to your longsword. And then it's the amulet of the planeswalker, all the way to the Spectre's Visor. And then we should have a single item at the end, the Arcade Disruptor. Great. So it works if the user is willing to manually put the page in the URL. And even if you don't have page, then you should be seeing the first page. We kind of default to this being the first page. Great. The thing is, whenever you do limit and offset, you definitely want to do an ordering as well. You want to specify that you want to order your records somehow. You can order them by ID or by created at, are common ways to do it. But if you don't, then the sort order is not going to be deterministic. So there is a chance that today your database feels like they're going to get these 10 items first, but then next day or next time it gets created, it'd be like, oh, take these like 10 items first because I read them from the disk in a different order. So in order to have deterministic order and deterministic pages, because no one wants to refresh this page and get different results every time, we should order them. And the way you order with Drizzle, I can only imagine is the same you order with any database. So you just specify whether you want ascending or descending in an order by chained method. So here, first, we should actually be ordering by anything we want. Our IDs are UUIDs, so and they are primary keys, so they can be quickly ordered in ascending order. They happen to be like later IDs. Items created later will have IDs that get sorted later alphabetically. It's kind of funny like that. But we also have a created at column, so we may as well use that one. So I think we want descending. And that means latest is at the top and then the time keeps getting lower. And then we'll want to use the created at column. And right, that's the different thing of what we're doing. I think it makes sense to show the later items first. Not sure, maybe. You let me know. But now it's the other way around. Maybe the order is actually different. So if we're doing an ascending, would actually end up being exactly the same thing. Let's see. Eldritch Staff to Yolong Sword. Yeah, so it does happen to be the same for these guys. But anyway, in reality, something different may happen if you don't have a sort order. So make sure you order by something. And of course, we may have the functionality where the user can order by name if there wish. We may add this in the future. Let me know if you want to see it. We've done a live stream of doing that before, but you may want to see it again with Svelte 5 and SvelteKit 2. So let me know. Right, so if the user is willing to put in the page, it works, but no user is willing to do that. So let's add some UI. And in fact, let's double check. I've done these two already. I have some UI by Drizzle. I like this. This one, the bigger the better. Why are the all buttons? Who knows? I guess the main trick is like the join class. What's the default size? MD? And that's computational. So in the UI, next to our page server, we have a plus page.svelte. And maybe in here we'll have like a pagination component. We can create it immediately. And in here, we're going to have this simple pagination UI. Here we go. But actually, this can be an ordered list. This can be a nav, actually, because you navigate the results. Let's do both. So we have these guys, and these should be anchors, because what are we saying? We're saying that we want to navigate to the second page of results here. So all of these guys are actually anchors. There are 8 refs, and we can just say that they go to like the look page, which is the page we're on. But we want to go with a specific search param, which is page equals 1, and so on. So this should get us to a different page. We scroll up, which you can kind of see it happening. Let's go to the big view. Maybe it will look a bit better. So second page of results, scroll back to the top. There is a way to scroll, to not scroll as you navigate if we had a Svelte attribute, but I'm not sure that's what people want. And yes, the active one looks kind of bad. Maybe I'll keep the bright mode for a while after we implement which one should be the active one. Anyway, 2 problems, too many anchors in this case, and we are also losing our search. So if we have these filters and we click, we are losing the filter when we move on. So we don't want that. We don't want that at all. How do we get around this? Well, I'm going to do some JavaScript. Or even TypeScript. How dare you? We do want this component to take, we'll know the current page from the page store. We do want to know how many items there are per page. We may keep that somewhere. And how many items there are in total. So that's something that this thing will want to know in order to know to render, whether it should render 2 anchors or 3, how many pages there are. It's going to be how many buttons there are here to click. So let's declare props. Let's get page size and total items, or total count. Get this from the props. Copilot is starting to get Svelte 5, which is nice. I remember, like in the chat, someone told me that they were coding along the next day with what I was doing, and the next day it auto-completed something that I had put the previous day, which was crazy, intense. What are these props? Let's declare them. The page size is a number, and so is the total count. And we need those to know how many pages there should be, because total pages, let total pages, we can derive that from a math method, indeed, total count to the page size. So if the page size is 10 and we have 31 items, there should be 4 pages. 10, 20, 30, 31. Yeah. So ceiling, like, go upwards. Cool. Why is this flipping out? Derived. It's derived. Cool. Let's use this type we've so nicely created. And here, I guess we want a for loop, essentially, which you can particularly do in Svelte. It doesn't have like a for each. It does have a for each thing with each, but it doesn't have a regular loop. And I have a range helper method here. Because every other language does have a way to just say, I want an array of 5 items, or you pass in the number. But JavaScript doesn't, so I have my own, but my snippet's not quite working. In Svelte files, in Svelte files, I should make it work there as well. So just switch to this file, which is TypeScript, empty. So I want to loop through an array of how many items? Of total pages items. And this can be page P. And therefore we can kind of use this here. And now, if we pass the things that these ones, so if in this page we pass in page size, right, and total count, this should work. It should correctly have 4 items here. So maybe 4, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. But we also want this p +1. No 0 indexing here. So this should be +1 too, surely. So first page, second page, third page. Oh, we only have 21. We don't have 31. I lie. Which is why we'll be getting the total count from the server. We won't be hard coding it here. And also, let's make the active one appear correctly. I think the class was like button active. Probably. So how do we do that? We can derive the current page from the page store. So page URL, insert params, get page or one, it's the current page. That's exactly correct. So here we can conditionally apply a class. Maybe the class button active if current page is p1, p+1. And I think that's a real thing, maybe not. Like, I keep forgetting how to conditionally apply classes in SvelteKit. I thought that was it. But maybe button active one is the one I'm making up. I'm making up something. That's for sure. It's button active. So this one is a string. So now it works. Great. So one problem solved. Second problem, we keep going through pages. First of all, now we toggle to fantasy, we don't have 21 results anymore, there are fewer. So let's have the server tell us how many items there are, and in fact, even how many items its page is. So let's get the page size from here. And let's see. Let's go to the server. So in this one, we can actually return the page size here. We can hard code it, I suppose. Maybe we should be passing it along. Yeah, let's pass it along. Let's say page size is 10. And pass it along here. And we need a total count. How do we get that with Drizzle? So that's a good question. So now we're saying that this can get a page size number. Actually, changed my mind. And our DB root repo also gets a page size and doesn't have its own page size. It's giving this. Things should work the same. But the other thing that we want is this select to also return the total count. And Supabase does have a handy method where you can also get how many items there are. But here, maybe we will want a separate count query. Are you seeing anything? No? Drizzle has useful relational queries API that lets you easily implement limit offset pagination. Great. How do you tell me how many items there are in total? I don't think there is something you can do here. I think you do need a separate query. Drizzle has simple and flexible API. I've used this before. Documentation via ChatGPT. I joke. I love this library. So yeah, unlike Supabase, it does seem that it has a sensible, just get me all of them. But that does mean that we need to write our own count, I think. Let's find out. So our select, we don't even use a select. So great time to use a select. We do want all these things. Thank you, GitHub Copilot, but we also want total count, I guess. No, that becomes a count query. Yeah. Yes, surely it has to be a separate one. Let's see. Let's return account here. See what we get back. And we're even streaming it. So I expect every total count is going to be like 1 in this case. Let's see if that is true. Total count 15. Interesting. So what we get here is correct. But it's only giving us 1. It's kind of crazy. So it is giving us all of the items, but just the 1 row. I guess because we're doing a count, and count is supposed to only return 1 row. I don't think there is a better way to do this, but let's change this interface, and let's say that this actually returns a promise of loot being loot and total count. And with a number. So this should change. And we have this db select. And the moment we do this, it's fine, but we want a separate one just for the count. So maybe to make it slightly clearer. Would it be clearer? Not sure. Maybe not. We want a different select for the count, but same where. Count would just be count. So then we want to return the loot here. We select and the total count being the DB count. And do we just execute it? Does it just work? I think it just works. And the orders and stuff should be the same. Can I update the select after the fact? Just a question I have. So we are doing a parcel select here, but can we nest it later in the query builder? Don't think so. Is it anything? I want this DB count to have exactly the same things, but I guess not an offset. And I cannot do the order by before the where, unfortunately. Oh well. I can just put here, I think. And then this should only have one row. I don't think you can change something to get like a single. It will have just one row anyway. Maybe for ease of use. Let's say that the loot and the total count is 2 requests can run in parallel. One of them is this crazy select. Look is also the name of the table, so I need a different name here. So first that query. Naming things is hard. This may work. Right, so we're doing 2 requests in the database. One of them is fetching items according to the page we're on. Another one is counting all the items that are matching the same filters as the select query, because we're doing this. That's a great thing to test, you know, Vitess test, to be honest. But then on the server, this changes. This should have two things now. This promise. Should it be loot result? Maybe. This actually get multiple now, isn't it? Should I have separated these two things? This too confusing. Also maybe. Counting feels like a different thing. Let's fix it as it is here and see how we feel. Loot is going to be loot result, then just get out the loot. Total count is going to be loot result, then let's get the count out of there. Let's get the total count out of there. So not that crazy actually. These are back, and then here we can actually say this is data page size and this is data total count. Ah, this is a promise. Interesting. So we can actually await. And so nothing until then. And now we're kind of happy. All right. Somehow we made it. Let's play it back. We are searching for all of them. And we can see the first page, second page, third page. Great. If we go for fantasy, then we can see that we only have 2 pages of results. If we go for sci-fi, we only have 1 page of result, which is where we are already. However, if we go to the second page, then we lose the filter. So how do we keep the filter in? That's the next thing to fix. Also, since we have access to the page store here, we, instead of getting the props, we could be getting the page size and the total count from the data. So what I'm saying is that the page store, this thing, also has access to the data its page loads. And in this case, we know that this page has like a total count. So long as it's rendered in this pagination component is rendered in this page, it's going to have a total count. So if you hate passing along probes, you can have access to this here. You don't need to do this, but I'm not convinced. I'd rather have, because I may want to use this pagination somewhere else, and I'd rather not have the contract. The only way to use this is if you have a total count and page size returned as a server load thing. I think that's too magic. I'd rather instead have pagination expect these props. Getting the page parameters from a page store, that makes sense to me. The other thing would be too magic, is my argument, but do let me know if you think differently. Anyway, we're losing our filters. Why? Because we're hard coding the URL here. Therefore, we need to do something about that. So let's create a method. Get page href. And the page is going to have a number. Should I map this? That's a bit more readable. Anyway, get page href. I'm writing a helper method here, and it's autocomplete some crazy stuff. Security URL is indeed this. We can create a new one and set the page to whatever this is. Great. Perfect. And this one can return a path name. So now every one of these for the href, we can just do get page href e, and what this achieves is that it keeps any other search params that are in the URL. If a page search param exists, it will be overwritten, I believe. But if it doesn't, it will append it, it will add it. But every other search param, which includes the filters for fantasy sci-fi and the user's query, is going to be expected. It's going to stay. So let's see now. We're on the fantasy mode. Go to second page, and we still lose it. Messed it up. So what are you doing here? See a little thing. Just goes to loot. That makes no sense. Well, that made no sense. Oh, just pass in this, right? Yeah, looks correct. The autocomplete was almost correct, but not really. Or was it? We are on fantasy, we're refreshing, it's fine. We are on setting equals fantasy. And what does this claim to be? href is just loot, so that doesn't make sense. Ah, the path name doesn't have search params. Absolute mug, I am. What a guy. So the thing is that I don't just want to return this. which may kind of work, but it's not going to be a relative URL. Ah, yes, it does kind of work. I thought, yeah, it looks like SvelteKit is not doing its usual magic if it's not a relative URL. So it does do it. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just fine. I thought for SvelteKit to do its magic, the URL should be relative, so not include the whole thing. But I guess the answer is no. Still makes me a bit uncomfortable. I think by having like the origin, we should be able to slice things out. Let's ask Copilot. Don't particularly want to like split and get the second thing by myself. I think this is a great case where Copilot can do better than I. How do you do? Ugh. Just as the path name and the search. Sure. And it has parameters. It even thought about this. So now this is a relative path and still works. Check whether it's a relative path. Relative path. Great. Big screen. The active ones look so bad in this theme. But hey. So now, no filters. We're going to go to second page. We're going to go to third page. All good. Fantasy resets to get us to the first page, which is good. Whenever you change the filters, you probably want to go to the first page of results. But if we go to the second page, it's still the fantasy one. So if we search for A, just to get like many results, we see that we even keep the search here. Just the one page here. Cool. Sweet. I think with that, pagination, at least with the limit offset way, is complete. Anything else left? Not really. All good. The thing that I was worried about is that should this get all also really return the count? Should it be a separate thing? Maybe like is it return it as loot and total count a good thing? Maybe we are doing this kind of weird thing where the loot result we then twice, but it doesn't matter, like the performance is the same. We're not awaiting them in order to be able to stream the data, which is saving us time. That's good. But it is kind of weird to like extract the loot from the result, extract the total count, but not that weird. Kind of like it in the end. I needed a bit of time to reflect on this. I think I dislike the most is calling this loot result, but I don't know what else to call it. Matching loot. Match include, sure. And I think officially I can actually commit all of this. Maybe a better page number, it's like 20 per page as well, but hey. If there are no more, we could also specify how many results we have here. We could not even have the pagination component. If the total pages is just one, then that's fine, I guess. Maybe you shouldn't be showing the results. We put this in a div. We also have of 15 results. We're getting into the UI corner. I know everyone loves. Not too bad. It's kind of different to what expected. So this one, I definitely want to align item center, which I am doing. Yeah. Without this class. Send a little gap as well. But maybe I can do justified. Between. Why am I doing all of this? I'm doing all of this because maybe if total pages is one, if total pages is more than one, then show the nav, or else just don't show it. Ooh, interesting. So this one should be the minimum of the page size and full count. So if you only have one page of results, you get this. If you have multiple, you do get your pagination UI. You're happy. Is that weird? Maybe. Maybe just having one here is also weird, so not sure. I think this is more expected, to not mess around with whether you're showing this or not. All right, you may be asking, why are we not using MeltUI or Shadowcan SvelteCN for this one? Sometimes I think it's like too complicated to do. We will, like, especially if you keep asking about these things, we have shown MeltUI made by the same brilliant person who has contributed a lot to the Svelte version of SvelteCN, the Svelte implementation of SvelteCN. And it's good. I like using it for quite a few things, but Pagination I didn't really like. I prefer doing things for the server, and those helpers are mostly for client-side state, and I just don't want to keep client-side state. I don't want this to be like a store and pass on my own store. I just want to navigate with anchors and stuff. That's why we're not using those things. But if the case calls for it, we are gonna use them. Just don't quite see it for this use case. It is nice. It does mean that you don't have to figure out how to do all of these things, whether we needed to calculate how many pages there are ourselves, how to iterate through these anchors ourselves. The nice thing with MeltUI is that they have these dot thing for the pages, so you can see 1, 2, 3 dot 9, 10, and not have like a million anchors in a page. Is that better design? Maybe, but as always, more complicated. We may get to it in the future if you're asking for it, or if I think it is much better UX. But as it stands, the less code, the better, and the less complexity, the better. The less things you have to maintain, the more you're able to develop the things that really matter in your app. So I'd say just reach for it in the end if you really need to. They are very cool tools for sure. Something weird happened then? No, everything good. Everything beautiful. Cool. The scrolling thing, let's have a quick look. So for these, in the anchors, I believe if we add the data SvelteKit no scroll, then we don't get bounced around if there is enough page. So now that we're at the bottom of the page and we go to this page where you do need to get at the top because there's just not that many more items, then we get bounced up. But in this case, we're not. We'll just stay in about the same position that we were in. Something to keep in mind. If you don't want the bouncing around, you can add this attribute. But in this case, I do think you want to see it. You want to go back to the top of results and check again. Remind yourself what the filters were, that sort of thing. All right. So, UI final done. What did we add here? I was going to commit and then we changed like a million things with the buttons in UI. Feels like I was wrapping up and it's like, oh wait, to actually make it great, we needed these things. So and if we start allowing other people to look, maybe the page size is going to be 20 or something like that. Cool. So what's next is talking about the performance of this, of the thing that we tested, and the other way to paginate. So this is definitely one of those things where I found out that you can definitely overcomplicate anything, including pagination and the GitHub GraphQL API, for example. Like instead of having an offset and a limit, you can have edges, so you get nodes back, and you know that the edge of this node means that you look to the right of this edge and you get the next item. And to me, that sounds overcomplicated. But as usual, it's not like the people that came up with these complicated questions just want to make your life hard. There are valid reasons for this. So whenever you do limit offset pagination like this, in the database, we're saying fetch me 10 items at a time, only 10, but skip 20. What happens on the backend is that all the rows are actually fetched, and then just the ones that you don't want get discarded, and what you get over the wire are the ones that you actually need, which is fine. But still, you do get the 20 rows, the backend does get the 20 rows that you don't want. And that's fine when you have a limited dataset, if it's like in the hundreds of thousands, maybe, like something to benchmark for sure. Performance will stay the same in this sample that has like 20 items. If it had 100, it would be the same. If it had 1000, it would be the same. But if it had hundreds of thousands of items and you wanted to go to like page 10,000 of this, then the performance would be visibly worse. It would take longer for the backend to fetch 10,000 rows just to discard 9,990 of them and then give you the 10 that you want. So performance would be degrading the longer, like the deeper you get into the pages. So some people are saying this is also an engineering problem, that how do you find the next position? What's the best way to find what the next item in like a queue is? And you can do something like a cursor, the cursor being the thing that tells you you're in this point and the next item is this. So that's your reference point. If you want the next page, it's going to be that one. So cursor-based navigation is also popular, and Drizzle also happens to have a nice little write-up about it. Here, keep in mind you still need to order things. Probably, if you are ordering by different things and not just IDs, for example, we're doing UUIDs here, you will need to complicate your cursor. You will need to say, you will need to include the types of filters and the sorting that you're applying to the dataset in your cursor. So complexity is greater. The benefit, would you experience it depending on your dataset? If you have tons of data, if the users are really going into the later pages, they're gonna have degraded performance. While the way the cursor works, no matter which page you're on, no matter where you're on, which result you're looking at, which bundle of 10 results you're looking at, it will always tell you, all right, the next bundle starts from this item. So you just skip to starting from there. So that's the idea of cursors. But the problem is that they're kind of complicated and you can't really tell how many pages you have in total. So if you see an app that just says previous page and next page, and you're like, why don't they say there is like 5 pages or get them to that page? They're probably using cursor-based pagination. And for that reason, it's super popular for infinite loading. Can only imagine for Instagram and social apps like that, where you have your feed and you scroll down and get more. Can only imagine that this is cursor-based navigation, and you keep fetching more results for your user as they scroll deep down, because the user will never want to go to a particular page. The pages change all the time. There is no concept of page there, and therefore you don't need to worry about things like people want you to go to the 4th page of results. You just want them to keep scrolling forever, and cursors are good for that. So there is a way to, in the app we're doing, I don't think it makes sense to do the cursor-based navigation, but just to show some things, we can try out deferred limit offset navigation from the same docs that we've had before. So Drizzle does have a write-up for this as well. And I will explain what exactly that is. Here, the idea is that first you do like a subquery where you figure out which items you're supposed to first. And then you do the actual query, which is, all right, these items fetch me all the data then, or the subset of the data that you want to get. First, you get the minimum amount of data required for this. So that's the idea, I guess, in this case, or the created at, because we'll be using the created at for the ordering. You get the minimum data required, and only then, only after you figure out what you're going to be getting, only then you run your real query. And you do it in like this weird way where you're joining the partial query, the table resulting from your subquery to the actual users table. Kind of confusing, but we'll try it out and see if it just works. Again, I haven't benchmarked this in this project. I haven't added like a billion items. Maybe I can do it in the future, and I can have a little benchmark stat for you and let you know. All right, switching from limit offset regular to limit offset with the deferred join, it saved us this amount of time when we had a million items. Let me know. Let me know if that's something that you'd like to see. Some scientific research here. Right, so no spelling mistake for us. But what we want is the same thing of having the subquery and then joining the table with itself. Let's see if it's going to work. And this is a great place where you can have your test and confidence that everything works. You've shipped this, it's in production, great, people are having fun on your website, and you're like, maybe the performance could be a bit better, maybe I'm doing something wrong there. You are free to refactor at your heart's content because you have the tests that say if it's green, then everything still works. And if it's not, then you can just forget this ever happened and be like, hey, it's good enough for now. How you actually fetch the data, implementation detail, is what I'm trying to say. So long as you have confidence that the user is getting the results that you want, you're free to refactor and try to optimize for performance preemptively if you wish. It's less fun to do things that are preemptive when you're also worried that you may be breaking production. Sometimes it's fun for the engineer, but for the product owner, it's not. All right, rambling over. I should paste something here. And we definitely want the subquery stuff. And we definitely want to add the where stuff conditionally. So and this actual select should be different, kinda interestingly. What are we doing there as well? It's another select. And we do the inner join with the query itself. Yeah, I think this can work. All right, so forget this happened. This ever happened. We're going to be building 3 queries. We have the db select, have the db sub query, and this one, this last select, does not need a where parameter, I guess, or a limit and offset, because it's taken care of that from that. we do not select, we need to select here. But it doesn't need limit offset because this subquery is only going to result into 10 rows because of the page size limit here. Kind of makes sense. This was right. I just need to copy this. This, let's just get the created at the ID. And I think it's fine to order. It's fine to not get the created at so long as we order for it. Specify this is a subquery. All right, kind of works. And we said that we don't need an extra order by line. We don't need limit and offset for sure. Right, so maybe here we can actually, no, we cannot. So wait a minute, this is claiming that we can only do the as in the end as subquery. So let's do it here. And here's where we want to select only the things that we need. Right, order, limit, offset. It's the problem that it's not added yet. I guess so. So here we want an order, limit and stuff. What's this? Oh, sorry, this was gonna crash. Right, so we have this select. It doesn't like this db select subquery, so what have we done there? Select just the ID column, order by something else. So this could be some problem. We're doing the order by limit offset and as subquery. But here, it's because it has a where clause, right? No? Is it that this? Yeah, we're not requesting the loot ID here. That could be a problem. We have the select from limit offset as subquery. We did all of those things. We do have the where at some point, but that's the problem. Select everything. Doesn't matter. We do these things immediately to the subquery. Is that any better? Yeah, it is happy then, which is unfortunate. Can we have an empty where? Let's unclass the server and see where we get. We're getting results, not something. Getting one result. No, we are getting all the results. Great. But we're not doing the where clause. Here, if we were to add a where clause, now somehow, if we don't eventually change this, it's happy. Don't know why. it seems to be working. So this upgrade more complicated, but it seems to work in the end. For some reason, we can't like keep nesting here and conditionally add the where clause. But even if we're not searching for anything, like just going into this space and spreading like an empty end, it feels like it's happy enough. Drizzle seems to be taking care of that. So good. And in theory, this skips the problem of you getting all the data that you're not going to be using. So if we are on the last page here, and we have just this row is the only one that we want. But to just do limit offset, your backend will be fetching the 20 rows before it and just not using them, moving on. With this trick, as far as I understand it, it is going to be fetching the 20 rows, but just their IDs, which is significantly less from the whole row that we need, and then fetching the whole row that you want. That's the point of this, which should be more performant. Again, let me know if you actually want me to run a benchmark against 1 million rows and see what happens. That may be fun. Now I'm thinking, should we do the DB count later? Should we just specify it here? Just to keep these things looking similar. And we don't need to order this actually. Count is going to be the same. This is always going to be one row anyway. Can't hurt. All right. So things still work and performance benefit if we had thousands of rows and you got into the later pages. Way to save that is to have worse UX and just have infinite loading for everything and just don't allow your users to go into any page that you want. You can only see the latest results. If you want to see the latest loot, you need to be online logged in to our app, or else it's gone forever. All right, not bad. So, time to talk more. If you remember here, and you can look into our where clause. Can push this refactor and say potentially if use deferred query for pagination. So you can search in this field, and it's going to look into the name, the hook, the aesthetics, the lore. And we've achieved this by running like matches here if there is a query in the search params. Essentially what is happening here. But we also talked about FTS5, full text search algorithm last time, which I tried to make it work, and I did, but I didn't find it as good in this use case as I expected. So what we did do, just to see here, this SQL. So what we have is a table that looks like this. The little table has an ID, which is a UUID, name, hook, blah, 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 many things. And I do have an index on the setting because people will be filtering on that one. On the name, because maybe we'll be sorting by name or by their created ad. That's why I preemptively did this. But we're also looking into every time the user searches inside the name column, the hook column, the aesthetics column, and the lore column, which is fine, not that bad. But doing it with a full text search way would be easier, would be faster. And the way you can do this is by creating a virtual table that is looking into the table that we just created, our load table. And on that one, we've also created a few triggers in order for every time we add things into the load table, it also adds things into this virtual table as well. The limitation that we run into is that the ID has to be an integer, has to be numeric ID, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which they did say in the docs, but I did see on the internet that it can work with unique IDs. It didn't. Offline, I found that out. But that was the only problem that we had. After changing this to be an integer, then the virtual table and adding stuff to the virtual table worked just fine. So the syntax is a bit confusing. I'm not going to overly explain it, but you can name this full text search table anything you want. You have to use the full text search model, specifically FTS5 is what we're using here. And then you specify what columns would you want to have there. And it would be the columns that you want to search in. So when people fill in this search bar, what should we be looking into? What should we be considering? In this case, name, hook, mechanics, highlight, aesthetics, lore, risk, many things. And when you query in this table, it's going to perform a more efficient search, and you can specify different algorithms, and there are even modules, so you can do a bit of a spell check, like fast matching, many things. Lots of cool things. The problem is that takes a bit of finagling to work with Drizzle. It doesn't work out of the box. You have to do something like pretend that you have like a view. For example, you have declared a view and then search querying that table, which I didn't particularly like. I thought that would be too confusing. Maybe we'll do it in the future, but for now, I do think that would have been a premature optimization for sure. That would have made things much trickier to follow. So according to the docs, what I thought would happen is that the moment you create this virtual table, that is related to this other real table that you have. Every time you do a query with the specific syntax that FTS5 expects, then it would automatically look into the FTS table to perform your full text search. However, it doesn't seem like that's how it works. How it actually works is that you have to explicitly look into the full text search table, the FTS5, the virtual table that you created for this. which makes it then trickier still, because I want to full text search, but I also want to filter results by their setting, or maybe other things that we'll do in the future. And then, like, should I be querying two tables? Should I be doing joins? Like, too confusing, too much complication for not a real benefit as it stands now. So I just didn't do it. It is possible to do. You can even get away with just having a virtual table and not like a real table. But I guess I'd recommend it on things that are just text. You have a lot of text, you can do your full text search. Makes sense. If you do have things where you need to worry about specific settings, draft modes, maybe start thinking about a bit more. Maybe then I'd say deprioritize, and then if you do run into a search problem, then look into implementing a solution. But if it's only things that you want to be searchable with no like various tags or whatever you have here, then consider creating just a virtual label like this. I did want to touch on this a little bit because full text search, it's cool. There are third parties that offer full text search as a service as well. So it's good to have a grasp of those things. And it happens to me as well. Like, I get exposed to these concepts. They don't make perfect sense. I see them again, and then I'm like, oh, I kind of get it. The more you get exposed to them, the more you understand them. Hopefully, it's the same for you as well. All right, so we talked about the full text search here. And maybe the final thing for today, we could try to do the many-to-many relationship thing. So what we have here is our tags column is actually a string column. So what we have is the literal string, dark magic, comma, attack speed, comma, trap, and all of that. But we may want, before opening this up to the Word, is to have tags be in their own separate table, which would allow us to filter for these tags better, to define them better. It may make things easier on a UX side. That's something I do want to think more about, but definitely it is useful to know what a many-to-many relationship is when it comes to database design. Usually you use SQL because you want to have relations between your database items and your tables. The easiest relation is one-to-many. So maybe one GitHub user has many repositories they have created, or one user has many emails, let's say. One user has many emails, each email belongs to exactly one user. But a many-to-many relationship would be something like this, where each loot item has a tag. Each loot item can have many tags, but each tag can belong to many loot items. So it's not a one-to-many relationship. One loot item can have many tags, but also a tag can have many loot items. And it's slightly more complicated. If you were to do one-to-many, you would just be saying that this tag, which always belongs to a single loot item, has a loot ID in its table, and that's how you would join those tables up. That's how you'd figure out that relationship. You'd be looking into the tags table. The loot ID is the one ID, the one loot item that this tag belongs to. But with a one-to-many, you need something that's sometimes called a pivot table. You want a third table as well. You want a table that keeps a record of loot IDs and tag IDs. And it says that this loot item is related to this tag ID. This loot item is also related to that other tag ID, which is also related to this other loot ID. So all the relationships, all the many-to-many relationships that you have there are mapped into that pivot table or join table. There are like many other ways to call this. But maybe we will be talking about this on Tuesday, and I will let it be for today and not get into the bonus stuff. We will see. it is a long weekend. My family is visiting. They've had their birthdays this month, as it happens, and we're gonna be kinda do some celebrations, belated celebrations here in Barcelona. And so maybe I will get this stream done early and then come back with a vengeance to maybe do the tags, the many relationships on Tuesday, or get straight into user accounts. Let me know. As always, I love to do useful things for you. All right, I will take the silence as my cue to exit. As always, I hope you've had a fun time here coding along with me. With the stream done, I have put some things already, so make sure to click around and let me know what you like, what you don't like, the things that you'd look to see in this project or the next projects coming. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks as always to the chat for engaging with me and helping pass the time. It's been a pleasure as always. Have a lovely Friday and an amazing weekend, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye.